I don't take nothing that a doctor don't prescribe. I just take Paxil, Xanax, Zoloft, Flomax, morphine, Valtrex, Flonase, Plavix, codeine, Zyrtec, Zoma, Zantac, Ultram, Zocor, Zipro, Prozac, dopamine, Demerol, Lexapro, Tylenol, Vicodin, Lyrica, Lipitor, and Adderall, but I don't do no drugs, man.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Beard, and I have Lindsay Reeves back with me again. Many of you may have watched the first podcast we did together about mold inspections, right? Because I was going through that process at the time, and Lindsay and her husband own a mold inspection business, and Lindsay also owns Hope, the mold sniffing dog, which we utilized during that process, and we learned so much. I'm happy to say that we are done with the remediation efforts, and I will retest myself in a few weeks just to see maybe, if we got it all or what might be going on. But I'm pretty confident we did a pretty good job. So today, though, we're going to talk about um, recovering and healing from mold illness. And the reason I wanted to talk to you, Lindsay, is because you've been through this, you and your entire family. And I am seeing more and more of this in patients. I even was seeing patients with mold illness, several prior to my own personal experience. And I've learned a lot, but I know that I still have a lot more to learn. And that's why I want to talk to people like you who have been through this and who are really plugged into this community.
Mhm.
All right. I am one of those doctors who understands that there's a lot that you can learn from your patients, from friends, and from non-doctors. Okay. You don't have to have an empty behind your name for me to listen to you. Okay. So tell us, let's start here. Um, just take us back to the beginning of your process, and we can get a little bit more into the details of what you find works, does not work, and some other things I want to talk about. But let's just talk about, maybe what you did, what you were experiencing, and then what you did.
Yeah, so we left mold in 2017. At that point in time, there weren't a lot of functional doctors that were working with mold. There weren't a lot of podcasts. Well, there were no podcasts. There were no Facebook groups, hardly. I think there was like 2 Facebook groups, and they had maybe 5,000 people, you know what I mean, each. And there was just no guidance. We had never talked to anybody or had friends or family or known anyone who had been through mold illness. And so I like to say we made it up as we went, because we literally did. We had no guidance at all. And so we had no idea what to do. We knew enough that we knew obviously ending that exposure and getting us out of that house was the most important thing, which we did. And I think we talked about this a little bit, in our last podcast, but we left that house, and me and the girls packed up. We came back to Arkansas because we were in Georgia at the time. We came back to Arkansas with just a very small little bag, came back, stayed on my mom's farm, and I bought the girls new clothes and new stuffed animals and threw away everything that we had brought with us, basically. And we got rid of most of our belongings and started over because our exposure was so extreme. And our kids were so sick, and I was so sick. I don't think we personally could have healed with any of those belongings. We took a few things with us, and every time our daughter would get around them, one of our daughters, she would start having reactions. And so we were like, never mind, we're just done. We're just done with this. So we got rid of pretty much everything, started over. Now, most people don't have to go to that extreme. We were on the very, very, very severe case. So we left and went to my mom's farm, and we stayed there for a month while Blake tried to figure out our house. And we had a luxury that most people don't, in that my mom lives in the middle of nowhere, Arkansas, on a very large cattle farm with horses and donkeys and cows. And She doesn't have Wi-Fi, you know what I mean? She's on a well. She's not got city water, or she does now, but at that time she did not have city water. There weren't toxins hardly, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so our kids could play outside.
Mhm.
They could get fresh, clean air. And so we spent a month out there before we returned. And during that time, we saw huge gains in our kids, huge gains. Our daughter that was screaming stopped screaming within 3 weeks. Our daughter that needed the inhaler didn't need it at all while we were there. And then once we, returned to real life, so to speak, we tried to find doctors to treat us and we couldn't. Nobody would see children. The doctors that I could find that might know a little bit about mold, which was very, very few and far between, they wouldn't see children. And so we just started seriously making it up. We were like, okay, what can we do? Okay, we know we can eat healthy.
Right.
We know we can eat clean, unprocessed foods. By that point, we had already taken out all food coloring and fragrance and as many chemicals and processed foods as we possibly could. We knew we needed to drink, clean water. We started giving the girls Epsom salt baths. And we did finally find a doctor who would give them some antifungals. So they took a quick round of nystatin. We started doing chiropractic care just because we were like, we don't know what else to do, and we just tried our best to avoid toxins, eat healthy, and then see if our body would do what it was designed to do and start fixing us, and that worked for us. For the first 3 years of us leaving mold, we did not work with any kind of a functional practitioner or any kind of doctor to lead us through a protocol. It was all just doing natural, normal, healthy, common sense, approach to health.
Yeah.
Mhm. So we did take, probiotics and multivitamins and, those type of things. But we did not do any binders. We didn't do any protocols or any, strict elimination diets or anything like that. And ours was a very, very, very severe exposure. And we still healed without all of that other stuff. Now, that being said, when we finally did find a practitioner to work with us 3 years later, we had some work to still do on our gut. Two of us were colonized. We had mark-ons, and so we had to do some nasal sprays. And we did a bunch of gut testing and genetic testing as well. And our functional doctor at that point was able to help us finish. But I would say we were probably 70% better just from doing very basic things.
And I'm glad you brought this up because, some of you who are watching and maybe going through this yourself, there's so many practitioners out there who are pushing, all kinds of protocols of various degrees. There's some commonalities for sure. Um, but I've been doing this long enough to know, mold is a toxin, right? It's a very different toxin. Okay. It's a strange little booger and can do all kinds of things to people. And I'm still wrapping my head around all the ways that it impacts these bodies. But like you said, um, I'm of the mindset that God has designed a very brilliant body that is capable of healing if it is given the right environment and inputs. And a lot of people want to rush this process. They want to get better, and I get it. You've been feeling so bad for so long. You are ready to get back to normalcy, but you can never rush the healing process.
No.
And that's where people I see they get into problems. They want to just go full steam. They want to like go on all these really aggressive detox regimens, these binders, these medications, and it is just too much for the body. And you
I
start
agree.
regressing. And then
Yeah.
you actually lost traction. You have gone backwards, and then it takes a lot more time just to get you back to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. So we tell people that after they leave their exposure or they have remediated, give your body at least 3 months to calm down. Like, give your body a minute to realize that it is in a safe environment.
Mhm.
Do the natural, gentle, easy things, rest, lots of sleep, lots of rest, lots of sunlight, walking, fresh air, clean water, time with friends and family, and, all those type of things that are very gentle to us. But if you can give your body a few months, it really, really needs that before you start trying to push things on it. Because it will cause you to have like a Herx reaction or some kind of a setback.
Yes. And through my research recently, I came across a mold illness support page, and there's some naturopaths on there, and they were kind of laying out their steps to healing. And I found myself agreeing with almost everything they said. It's like you said, first thing is nervous system regulation. You just got to give your body time just to calm down from what you just went through and what it was being exposed to. And your body is detoxing during that time, just being out of it. Now
Mhm.
it's not, it's able to detox on its own, to some degree. And then, you give your body time to calm down. And then you might move into gentle, um, support for your lymphatic drainage,
Mhm.
right? Helping out those systems that are in place to help your body clean itself. So it is sauna usage, not aggressive, very gentle, because uh, things can go awry with sauna usage, and people don't quite understand that. But lymphatic massage, dry brushing, the exercises you can do on yourself,
Mhm.
the lymphatic drainage exercises, again, still resting. Those things I think need to be done first and foremost. And like you said, it with almost anything, and I've been doing this long enough to know the foundations, just general common sense, foundational principles: eating real food, eating clean food, drinking clean water, not tap water, not your municipal water. That's not clean water. Okay. It's just not. Um, Getting outside. The sun is your friend. Okay. Sunlight is everything. Prioritizing sleep. Engaging with your friends and family, because you probably haven't been doing that because you've been so sick. And when you're sick, you just want to be left alone because you're in survival mode. So let's those are the foundations that I really think do a lot. And when I'm working with mold illness patients or other people who are just have really high toxic burdens or whatever it is, they just want to focus on that toxin, right? It's the toxin causing it. But when you start looking at what they're eating, what their day looks like, they're eating terribly. They're rushing 24/7, burning the candle at both ends. They're on their phone before bed. It's like, no, what you're feeling and saying is the mold is really not. And I've worked with these patients, and sure enough, you get them eating better, you work on their gut health, you get them just to do these foundational things, and they start to feel better without the binders and
Yeah.
VIP nasal sprays and all the things that certain people push for mold illness. Um, it's interesting that you not interesting, but I'm glad you brought up something called Marcons, because Marcons is this, you have a bacteria that should be there, but it's over colonized, right? And it creates these biofilms, and it's in your nasal passages. And um, there's various different types of sprays out there that people can use. I don't, did you use the beg spray, the
We
Bacter
did.
bag?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, that's, I'm researching this right now because I know some people have not even had to use that.
Yeah.
They have had, like just the xylitol X Clear nasal
Hmm.
sprays or just an EDTA spray that will
Yeah.
break down that biofilm and let the body take care of the overcolonization once the biofilm is released. And so you can test and for Marcons, it's a little nasal swab, and then you send it off, and they can tell you whether or not you have this or not. I have it. Most people who have been living in a moldy environment have this, and it's or if you've taken a lot of antibiotics,
Hmm.
this can form as well, and it can also form in your gut and your anywhere you've got bacteria. You can have what we call pathogenic biofilms that form, and that's something that you probably um, will need to address at some point. Maybe not, you know, but it's an easy test, and the treatments are fairly easy too. How long did you use your beg spray for your Morcons?
I can't remember. I think it was just about a month.
Okay.
I think it might have even been 21 days, 3 weeks maybe.
Yeah. Did you have any types of issues with that? Because some people say that it dies off, right? And it can overwhelm a system.
So I didn't, but I did it 3 years after we left mold.
Right. And I think
Three
that,
years.
yeah, I think people want to jump right into it,
Yeah. Yeah.
like before their body has calmed down and all that. And it's just adding more toxic burden to an already overburdened system. Um, And then, so I have a lot of people. So I knew about mold illness several years ago, just through my IFM training, because it's brought up, it's talked about. But Dr. Jill Carnahan, who I know you know, and
Mhm.
she's a functional medicine doctor who she deals primarily with mold illness, and she's up in Boulder, and she's more of the natural route.
Mhm.
And then on the other end, you have Dr. Shoemaker and the Shoemaker Protocol, which I have looked into.
Mhm.
And I actually, you know, I appreciate his research, and I did most of the labs that he recommends to identify if you have mold illness. I knew I had the exposure, but I wanted to see how much the mold was impacting me. And indeed it was.
Mhm.
I had several of those markers that were positive, and fell in line with that. But when it comes to what he recommends, it's like he is a conventional medicine mindset doctor. And a lot of people have said, I used his protocol and it helped me. And if that is you, I'm glad it helps you. I know people who have not used it and ended up in the same place. They healed too. And when I was talking to people who have been through this protocol, and there's a lot of people who have used this protocol and have not fared well at all. And I don't think that gets discussed enough. A lot of people don't even get past 2 months of his treatment because it's so aggressive. And he's just in that typical, and I know the mindset of these doctors, it comes down to lab values and pharmaceuticals. And he's very heavy on the pharmaceuticals, using things like cholestyramine, which a lot of people do not tolerate, VIP nasal sprays, statins,
Mhm.
beta blockers. And when I was seeing that in his protocol, I was like, uh-oh, these are big, like red flag waving. Like, no, what is going on here? And then of course, just the labs themselves. If you were to do the labs he recommends, and it's not just a one-time thing, you have to do these labs repeatedly throughout the process. Just one round is going to cost you, and this is my cost, $800 to $1,200, depending on if you use Quest or LabCorp, and that's my cost. Um, I'm thinking, okay, how many people are going to be able to afford doing these labs time and time again, plus getting compounded medications like VIP, which are not cheap, and constant follow-ups, and you end up spending thousands and thousands of dollars. And I'm just here to tell you, now that I have been through, I'm on the beginning, probably midway through this healing process, but and having worked with others, you don't need to do that. Um, I don't think. Now, you always have your simple cut dry cases, and then you have your train wreck patients.
Yeah. There's exceptions. Yeah.
Oh wait,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. There's
Yeah.
always exceptions. But I think everybody wants to put themselves into that exception category. Like they've got to be the exception, they need all that. And I'm just saying, wait, we need to just slow down and think about this.
Mhm.
Um, because I've just what I'm learning and what I'm seeing is that these aggressive protocols, like you mentioned, just um maybe aren't what they are being claimed to be.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say something?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I agree. I think that some of these protocols are extremely strict. They're very expensive. They're very time consuming, and they in and of themselves can stress people out so much that it causes more problems than good.
Yeah.
There's always exceptions to the rule, but I don't think that the vast majority of people coming out of mold illness need to go down those rabbit holes of super, super, super strict protocols. We just don't see that. I mean, we work with so many families, and the vast majority of them, remediate, move, whatever, clean their HVACs, clean their ductwork, do a deep cleaning on the house, whatever, get a new bed, pillows, whatever. And then they go through and they support their body and they allow their body to do what it's supposed to do. And then, there's always the things, healing from this is not linear. It's one step forward, three steps back, two steps forward. And so you're going to have things that happen. I mean, I usually tell people after you end the mold exposure, in about 3 months or so, something major is going to hit you. You're going to get strep, or you're going to get COVID, or you're going to get the flu, or your Epstein Barr is going to rage, or I mean, like we see it so often, but it's part of your immune system just trying to get itself back in order.
Yeah.
And so some people do have to go down those really strict rabbit holes. Oftentimes people do have to start looking at co-infections. Some people wind up with Lyme that's been activated, and that's a really, really, really hard one to get put back together once that's out. And so we do see people sometimes have to go down the rabbit holes of, okay, what co-infections do I need to tackle next?
Yeah.
Those type of things. But I'm just, the vast majority of people we work with don't have to go through extremely, extremely strict regimented protocols to get their bodies back to healthy, because like you said, God designed our bodies to be able to heal ourselves. And if we get out of the mold, if we support our bodies and we give it what it needs with clean food and water and, some maybe supplements and support, it can start doing what it's designed to do.
Absolutely. And as a functional medicine doctor, I see this all the time in not just mold illness patients, but all kinds of patients who are dealing with chronic inflammatory conditions. It's, and we tell, it's usually not what they want to hear, right? So they want a magic therapy potion that they can take right now and it's going to start working and make all things better. And I'm sorry, but that's never the case. That is a pipe dream.
Yeah.
And it really comes down, selling the foundations, the common sense is not an easy sell. People are like, what do you mean? And I'm just like, but this is what's going to make you better. Yes, it's going to take a while, but when you get better, you're going to stay better. This is not just treating your condition right now. This is a lifestyle change for here on out that's going to keep you well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that can be a hard sell, but if you've got, but we have patients who do it, and almost always they're like, I'm so glad I hung in there,
Yeah.
and didn't
Yeah.
get and didn't get distracted by all the quick fixes that were
Yeah.
being thrown at them. And they use supplements and things like that, but it's not, we always try to keep them on the low end because I'm not a fan of filling up on supplements too, but I know which ones give the most bang for the buck.
Yeah.
And when used at the right time and appropriately.
Yeah. People have to realize that they didn't get sick overnight, and they're also not going to get better overnight.
Thank you.
Yeah. It is a process. It is definitely a process.
It is such a process, but it's a process that absolutely works and sticks. Um, so I tell me what you have found, in that, and I think we probably already touched on this, but what are the things like the big no-nos? Like, I know this is being thrown at you, and a lot of people you probably don't want to do that.
Yeah. So,
That's something I'm going to talk about after you say this.
okay. I don't recommend people that they get out of mold or they ended the exposure and they immediately jump into a bunch of binders. I don't recommend it. It usually doesn't end well. They usually have a lot of issues. Binders take out more than you want them to, oftentimes. And I've seen people get almost addicted to taking them. And they wind up deficient in other things because they take them so much, so strictly, so often. And so we really try to tell people to avoid them for a while. I mean, there may be a point where you need them,
Yeah.
but I would wait on that if you can at all. I we just, like I said, go back to the basics. I mean, we're just really, really, really firm on going back to the basics because we think that that's the most important thing. I wouldn't go down some, rabbit hole with some doctor that wants you to do a bunch of really strict protocols in any way, shape, or form. I would try to avoid that for as long as you possibly can. If you end up there, then, maybe you do. But if you can avoid it, I think most people can avoid that.
Yeah.
I tell people to stay off Facebook. Please stay off Facebook because, and here we are on Facebook. Like, I'm talking about the mold support Facebook groups. Man, there are so
That's
many.
a lot of support groups too.
Oh, yeah. Well, true. There's so many people on there that they do not have your best interest at heart. They are selling something.
Um,
They are selling machines, or they are selling supplements, or they are selling protocols, or I mean, they are selling their product or program or whatever. And some of them, they are not trying to help you. And so I just say stay off of that because those Facebook support groups can terrify you.
and it's also a lot of well-meaning people on there, but um, who who probably aren't the most qualified to be giving you advice. And we all have our same, our own stories of healing and what works and what didn't. But man, I see people giving advice, and I'm like, man, if you do that, you are going to regret that big time. Um, and it's just, and there's a lot of doom and gloom
Yes.
on these sites, and I'm just, you
Mhm.
don't need that right now. You
Yeah.
will heal. You will. Okay. The body was designed to heal. And I see doom and gloom in a lot of different types of support groups for various illnesses. The binder thing is interesting because a lot of people, like you said, the binders are not binding just the toxins. They're binding nutrients
Mhm.
and minerals and things that your body needs to heal. And they can be very constipating. And when you're not eliminating, you are just reabsorbing toxins, hormones, and other things that are going to be detrimental to your health. And so you've got to really approach that with some caution. I think they may have a time and place for some people, and there are binders I think that probably are a little easier on the system than others, but they come from natural foods. I'm a big fan of pectins. Pectins are in a lot of foods, and they can help bind things without doing a lot of the things that activated charcoal and bentonite clay and those things can do if you're using them aggressively. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Now, here's another, this is something, and man, that I know you have heard, you've experienced, but I have patients who there's multiple families in the home having problems. They have been for a while. We know it's mold. They have nowhere to go. And
Yeah.
they're like, what can I do? What can I take? What do I need? And I'm like, oh, you know, other than just doing the basics, those foundational things to support your body's detoxification processes and lymphatic drainage, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You've, from my understanding, is it's all about the exposure. And I don't know if it's if you can cut down your exposure to a little bit in a home that has mold, if you were to just seclude yourself to a specific room in the house and that's where you stayed, and that's not realistic, you know. I don't know what do you what are your thoughts on this, because it's heartbreaking, because I was fortunate. I we got a now, I mean, I lived in an RV for a little bit. I had a mother and father I went and stayed with, and we had the financial resources to remediate our home.
Yeah. It is hard, and we talk to people like that all the time, and it's very sad. I have a dream of having a retreat center for families to go to with, housing for families to get out of mold. I keep joking, I just need about $40 million. So, if somebody will help me with that, then
But God, I know you're hearing this conversation right now, and you
because
like
I mean,
big
yeah,
things.
I have a dream. I just have a dream. There's
I
no
know.
Wi-Fi, and there's horses, and there's dogs, and there's organic gardens.
And my dream is just like to have a place for people to come who are like need a
Yeah.
somewhere healthy to be.
Yeah.
You know,
I can see it. We've got yoga and we've got saunas and we've got, organic
all
healthy food. And
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I can see it. So one day, but other than that, we do have this list that we send out to people. And I'll probably send it to you
yeah.
before we come out to somebody's house. There's this list that I have, and it's also on our Facebook page. That's what can you do while you're waiting to remediate or move or whatever. Um, Obviously, lessening the exposure is as as important as anything. It is the most important thing. Ending the exposure is key. However, if you can reduce the exposure, at least you're headed in the right direction. So we tell people if they can stay outside as much as possible. If it's nice outside, open the windows. If they can work on the back patio versus, that moldy dining room that they've been working at, do that. If you can go for walks, if you can go visit family, if you can go stay with somebody, yeah, if you can close off that room that is the worst, or put it under containment somehow with plastic sheeting or negative air, or whatever. If you can try to end the exposure, number one, reduce the exposure is number two. And then from there, you have to try to reduce toxins as much as possible. So we may not be able to 100% control the mold today, because that may be a process, but we can reduce other toxins.
Right.
We can get, a cheaper water purifying system. We can make sure we're buying real food. We
Right.
can not go to fast food restaurants.
Yeah.
We can get rid of the Clorox bleach or whatever and swap out for a more natural cleaner. We can dust and vacuum as much as possible, washing our sheets and, taking our pillows outside and beating them with a baseball bat. You know what I mean? Like anything you can do to reduce your toxin load overall is at least a step in the right direction. Some people might add some, multivitamins, vitamin D, magnesium, some different things like that, because most people can tolerate those. And when you're in mold, it's taking all of your nutrients. It just sucks the life out of you in more ways than one. But
Your
it
body's
takes,
working overtime, and it's going.
yes, your body's struggling.
Body's
Mhm.
burning through those nutrients.
Mhm. Yeah. So if you can start taking some of those, drink some electrolytes,
Yeah,
those type of things.
absolutely.
You can do Epsom salt baths and gentle things. We tell people that they can make an air filtration system. There is I can't remember, Corsi Rosenthal, I think is the name of it, but it's on YouTube. It's basically you take a 4 box fans and high rated MERV HVAC filters, and you create your own air purification system. And you can do that for much cheaper than you can go out and purchase a very expensive air purifier that then might become contaminated in that space.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that people can do. Again, try not to isolate yourself. Try to be out as much as possible, talking and hanging out with friends and going on walks and bike rides. Staying out of the house as much as possible is super important if you can.
Yeah. Sunlight is medicinal in many, many ways. And so I just tell people to get as much sunshine as you absolutely can. I have a patient whose family, I think there were 6 children. They were living in living in tents outside because the home was so bad. That was that was their only option, but they were so sick they had to, and the home was so moldy they had to. And this, I mean, I know multiple people who have had to go reside in tents.
Mhm.
I mean, you do what you do. I mean, when you see your children suffering, you're going to have to. It's hard. It's such a hard situation.
It is.
And a lot of times, insurance, like you said, insurance companies don't pay for mold remediation, and it's expensive. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
Paul would even come up with the idea of a mold tent that people could actually sleep in.
Yeah.
At least for 8 hours, you knew that as you slept, you would be breathing in clean air. And I was
Yeah,
like,
I would love that. If it had an oxygen, like if it had fresh oxygen that it was pumping into you, that'd be amazing. Yeah.
and the red light therapy in
Yeah.
there too. And maybe you could just move this tent where, like, if you put it on you, you could work at your office inside this tent. We're just like, what do these people do? I feel so bad for them,
Yeah.
you know?
Tell Paul to get on that.
Oh, the engineer wheels are already working, I can
Yeah.
assure you. But when you go through these situations, my heart just goes out to people, and it did the same thing to you. You want to find solutions and ways to help people when you've been through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, that's why we do what we do.
I know.
We could not sit back and let other families go through what we went through and them not know and
Right.
them not have help and solutions and answers and guidance, because again, we had to make it up. Like, we had no guidance at all, and that's a hard place to be. It's much easier when you can walk hand in hand with someone who's been there and done that.
But I will tell you this too. God will absolutely help you during this journey. All you have to do is ask.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
will either give you the information when you're alone listening, or he will provide you the people that can help you.
Yeah.
He's not going to bring you into a situation like this and just go, all right,
Yeah.
I'm out of here. He's just not going to do that. And he's always been faithful to me in that way. And I'm sure he has to you
Mhm.
too, because he is a faithful God. And he does not want us sick. So, and I have to remind my patients of this because I've been there. I've been like desperate, like, I'm not ever going to get better. What's going on? Why am I sick? God, what is going on? And he always brings the answers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, it
we
doesn't
we were very blessed. Our family and our friends supported us. We were renting so we could just leave. A lot of people are not as lucky as we are. We were very, very blessed when we went through what we went through. Our family didn't question us. They didn't make fun of us. They didn't think we were crazy.
right.
And a lot of people don't get that support, but we were very, very blessed.
In fact, that's a big deal in a lot of families. Is you've got somebody who's sick with mold illness who might be that canary in the coal mine, and nobody believes them
Yeah. Oh, it happens all the time.
all the time. And that goes with a lot of chronic illnesses, that they may look fine, but they are struggling. And
Mhm.
people, like I said, it's like if your hair's not falling out and you're not covered in boils, nobody thinks you're sick. So
Yeah.
just carry on, like, why can't you do that? What do you mean you feel bad? Look,
Mhm.
it's just that's a tough one. Or I live in the same house and I'm not sick.
Yeah.
Well,
The amount of times that people call us and we talk to them, and this, when people call us, we go through a lot with them.
yes,
Because we may get to talk to them one time and never talk to them again. So we're going to tell them everything we can possibly tell them,
yes,
on that first conversation. And we try to send as much resources and support after that phone call as we possibly can. And the amount of times that we talk to somebody and they say, I am just so thankful to talk to someone who doesn't think I'm crazy.
I
I am
know.
so thankful to talk to someone who believes me.
Yeah.
And that breaks my heart. It's
Oh.
so sad.
I know we have a lot of patients who tell us that. It's like, I finally have found somebody who believes me.
Yeah.
I've been there. People think you're crazy. Like, no, there's something seriously wrong with me. I just
Yeah.
don't know what it is yet. But now I do. And I'm glad, that's just part of, God was like, all right, Amy, I need you to know about mold illness, because you're going to have to help some of my children here, I'm going to bring.
And you will. You'll help so many people.
Yeah. It was alpha gal and now it's mold illness. Here's something interesting that we have found. I am finding a high correlation of people with alpha gal and mold illness, and maybe even high COVID spike protein antibodies. So there's an immune dysregulation
Mhm.
occurring that's allowing these things to really become a problem.
Yeah.
So we're still looking into all that. We still don't quite understand the connections, but we just we've seen it enough. Like, what's going on here? So now,
We see that all the time with people, not alpha-gal specifically, but
Lyme,
mold,
yeah,
it starts messing with your body, your immune system, and its ability to keep things that it would normally suppressed. And so, our immune system is constantly working, fighting, trying to keep our Epstein-Barr at bay, or trying to keep Lyme at bay, or, strep or whatever. And when the mold takes over our bodies, our toxic buckets are full, it just can no longer stop those things. And that's why people are so affected completely differently. You know what I mean? Like, you'll have 5 people in the house and they'll all have different symptoms and things happening. And it's because this one was exposed to Lyme. You know what I mean? And it's over there trying to suppress that. And this one was exposed to alpha gal and it's over there.
3 levels from silver fillings, or yeah, and a lot of mold impacts your gut microbiome so greatly. And I think that's what allows things like alpha gal to be worse than what they need to be, because
Mhm.
we now know that there are bacteria that in the gut that tell your body not to react like mammalian meat is a foreign object. And
Mhm.
so those bacteria are being manipulated and killed off, and so the body's just losing its communication system to say this is a friend, this is a foe.
Mhm.
And then of course you've just got all kinds of, inflammatory cytokines that just start to become problematic and get hard to turn off. And the body's just is trying to, maintain some homeostasis and protect itself. But yeah, you just, again, it comes down to supporting the body's innate ability to heal.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that,
And I think, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that, that's why we see so many like mast cell reactions.
Right.
And that's one of the most common things that we see, where your
Yes.
body's just fighting everything. It doesn't know what to fight. So it's like, I'm just going to fight everything that you throw at me.
Yeah, everything you eat, you react to, and sometimes, and usually it's not just one thing that's contributing to this. It's usually multiple things, and those are complicated cases, but again, we have helped people out of those complicated situations. It just takes time.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't want to hear.
Yeah.
But tincture of time can do a lot in the healing world.
Yeah.
So anyway, anything else that you would like to share?
Um, I think we talked about it that, just healing is not linear. It's one step forward, three steps back, and just don't get discouraged. We tell people that in the very beginning, so like today, write down every single symptom that you have and date it.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you don't even think it could be related to mold, it probably is. Mold doesn't cause everything, but it allows
Yeah.
so many things. And so we're like, write down every single symptom for you and every person in your house and date it. Because what happens is those symptoms usually came on slowly and silently, and that's how they're going to go away too. And if you come back and you're like 3 months later and you're like, I am not better at all, go back to that list and reread it, because you're going to be shocked at how many things you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not waking up 7 times every night to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Oh my gosh, my ears aren't ringing anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not going through 4 boxes of tissues a day, or whatever.
Yeah. And that's what we have our patients do. They complete a medical symptom questionnaire at the very beginning, and we have them updated every 30 days because they're like, I'm just not doing good. But then you look at their MSQ score and you're like, but you kind of are. But it's an objective data point, because when you're going through the process, you may not, it's kind of hard to remember where you were and where you are now.
Yeah.
But you could probably download an IFM or functional medicine medical symptom questionnaire off the internet and just fill it out and just keep doing that on a regular basis, and it's an objective way to kind of see where you are, because sometimes you need to see it.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Dr. Jill Krista on her website, she has a really good questionnaire on there. And so that'd be a good place to get one of those. One of the things that we also tell people is we personally don't want people to retest themselves constantly after this, because you're going to be detoxing for a long time. And sometimes if you're testing too often, you'll actually negatively like reset yourself, because mentally you're like, well, I was feeling good, but then this paperwork says I'm not.
Yes.
And that's a problem. I'm like, just
Oh.
let's not test constantly. How do we feel? How are we functioning?
That's the most important. But so many people get hung up on labs.
Yeah.
And that's why I have to have the lab talk with people. I'm like, it is just some data. And let me tell you right now, labs are not perfect.
No.
They fluctuate. There's lots of things, like everybody gets hung up on antibody levels. Antibody levels are not specific. There's so many things that can skew antibody levels. And at the end of the day, it is how do you feel? I don't care what the number shows. How do you feel?
Yeah.
And we're going to keep doing whatever it is that is making you feel good. I don't care what the number says.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree with that. And, after a few months, if you've gone through all of the things and you're still not, having a lot of gains, then there's probably some hiding co-infection in there. I have Hashimoto's now from the mold exposure. It's super common for women to have Hashimoto's after mold exposure. And so I have to take a small amount of thyroid medicine daily, but getting my Hashimoto's under control was a huge win for me. And so there are some things that, you may have to take some medicine if you didn't want to. I didn't want to. I didn't want to take any.
Right.
But ultimately I did.
And maybe one day you won't have to have that anymore either. Because I've helped a lot of people get off of their thyroid meds.
Good.
And we really work to do that. And like you said, if you're still not better, there's so many other things that could be going on that are preventing your healing. And
Yeah.
so that you need to work with somebody who knows how to do a thorough medical lifestyle health investigation on
Yeah.
you.
One thing I also tell people, and it's on that list that we send out, you probably need to be gluten, dairy, and definitely alcohol free
Yes.
while you're trying to go through this process, because gluten and dairy are two of the things that we see people become intolerant to more than anything after mold exposure. And alcohol, obviously, there's just no good thing that can come from drinking,
It's just
alcohol. So,
it's a toxin, okay? And then I noticed that I'm not a big drinker. I might have a gluten-free beer occasionally, but while living in this home, I noticed that I cannot tolerate alcohol at all.
mhm.
Like a third of a beer, and I feel it, and I'm like, that's intoxication. So this is not good for me. And I just would feel sick the next day off of just a small amount
Mhm.
of a beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feeds all the wrong things in our
It,
body.
it does. And it's just, and everybody's like, well, do you just drink wine? I'm like, yeah, but the wine back then was very different than it is today. It was much more medicinal. They
Yeah.
actually put herbs and stuff in their wine, and they weren't drinking it every single day. And
And he wasn't living in mold.
he was eating, everything was organic. There were no, he wasn't being poisoned all the time in his
Yeah.
environment. And he was, yeah. So let's not compare ourselves to Jesus. Um, all right. Anything else that you'd like to share?
No, I would just say that,
What do you think about fasting and mold illness?
I think there's always a time and place for certain things. I'm not a big fan of it. My husband has done it and been successful with it. I think I might kill somebody. So probably not going to be me. There's all sorts of different, like I said, rabbit holes you can go down.
Yeah,
And there's a time and a place for a lot of them.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
I think that there's probably some good benefits to it for some people, and then some people maybe not. So it
Yeah,
just depends on you.
and you definitely don't want to fast when your nervous system is a wreck because it makes it worse. Especially women. Men can seem to handle it better than women, from what I can see, but not always.
Yeah.
One last thing I wanted to share with you. So, I had looked into plasma exchange treatment
Yeah.
because I know Dr. Jill Carnahan is now promoting that as a way to remove toxins. But supposedly you can get rid of toxins real quick with these plasma exchange. Well,
Yeah.
I met with Dr. Savage, who is the big guru for these plasma exchange, and he wanted me to do a series of 5 exchanges over 5 months at a discounted rate because I'm a physician of $50,000.
That's a lot.
And I'm thinking, before I made it, I was like, okay, God, if this is something that you want me to go through so that I can learn and then maybe help other people, use this, then okay. I said, but you need to put up some red flags for me during our conversation to know that this is off the table. And he did.
Yeah.
He was name dropping and doing a lot of. He's a nice man, and I'm sure there might be a place for this for people who I don't know. But when he said the 50,000, I was like, all right, that's not going to work. And who can afford that?
Yeah. Nobody.
Nobody.
Only the ultra rich.
And that's who he's servicing. When you look at where his clinics are popping up, they're always, in the very affluent places in our country. And I'm just like, no, I'm sorry, but I'm God created a very beautiful body, and I'm not going to need that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm glad I talked to him about it and everything. But when he threw out that number, I was like, oh, yeah, that ain't happening.
Crazy.
So yeah, beware. And that's just, I mean, people get caught up in these very expensive treatments because they're desperate,
They are desperate.
and I was just,
That's the reason I said those Facebook groups, a lot of people will prey on people because they're desperate and they know they're desperate.
Yeah.
So they'll tell them, I'll sell you this machine. You don't have to remediate your house. Just run this machine. Or, you know what I mean? Like things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't work. It's just,
I
it's
know.
crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we have certain technologies that come around. I've seen how they've helped people. But sometimes well, not sometimes, a lot of times I think those things could have been avoided completely.
Mhm.
If there was just some foundational principles in place and people
Yeah.
were not so impatient with the healing process.
I tell people, I'm like, rest a lot because that's when our bodies heal. When we're sleeping, we need really good, solid rest and give yourself a lot of grace. A
Yeah.
lot of grace. You know what I mean? Be willing to say no to things if you need to say no. Because this is a time you really, really need to focus on you and your health and your healing. And if that means you got to tell people, no, I can't be a part of that, or I can't run that committee, or I can't lead that chair, what,
Don't,
sorry, this it's not the time.
yeah.
Today is for you to heal.
And I've had to have that conversation with patients. It's like, Christmas is coming up and they're dreading it because so much of it falls on them and they're going to be expected to do this and that. I'm like, listen, you're going to have to be upfront with your family. Like, I can't do it this year. I am not well.
Yeah,
And it's okay. And if
that
they
is.
get mad and they don't understand, who cares?
Mhm.
You've got to focus on getting well. And
Yeah,
I've had to, kind of be like that with, some of my family too. It's like, listen, can't do it. Sorry.
yeah,
You know, I am not well. I may look well to you, but I am not. And you just got
yeah.
to put up those boundaries, and it's okay to do it because it's not going to be forever.
Right. Yeah.
And then one day
We.
you'll be hosting the party. You'll be
That's right.
the hostess with the mostess again. But right now you got
Yeah.
to.
We tell people that we want to help them get their homes in order, get the mold out, get their health back so that they can move on to live the life that God designed them to live.
Absolutely.
Not, we don't want them to become obsessed with this. We don't want them to be traumatized for the rest of their life, paranoid, freak out, and never be able to move past this. I mean, obviously we want them to be cautious and preventative and aware and make good decisions moving forward, but we don't want this to define them. Now it's defined us. Like we chose this career, right? Like, but I feel like that was what God called us to do.
Right.
We don't want other people to have to be thinking about this and living through this 5 years from now or 10 years from now. We
You
want them to be able to move on and live their best life and what God has called them to do.
Absolutely, because there you will heal and you will move on and you can forget that and you can just be normal again
Yeah.
and not have to micromanage everything you put into your mouth, and I see people, the patients get caught, and I understand it's important at first that you do all these things, but at some point you got to just breathe again, and not get hung up on all the little minutia. It's okay. You're safe. You're healed. Let's go. Let's go live life. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Lindsay. I always enjoy talking to you. You're just such a huge blessing to people because you care, and it's very evident that comes out. Just the first time we talked, I mean, it was over text and on phone. I was like, oh my goodness, she goes well beyond what I had ever thought that she would provide me with, and I've recommended you to a lot of people because of that. And so, thank you for doing what you do.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to pray for big things to happen, for a respite center
Yes.
for people to heal. And our God, there's nothing impossible for our God. And so it's going to be interesting to see what he does with that dream.
Yeah. Might need you to move up here and help me with it.
Yeah. I was just there this past weekend. I was up in Northwest Arkansas, which has just exploded. Oh my goodness, lots of things going on up there. But yeah, there's something there. God wants us to dream, and it feels good to dream again. And I know a lot of people who have been sick have probably been in survival mode and don't dream anymore, don't even think about tomorrow because they're just trying to get through the day. But there will come a time when you can do that again. And it's important that you do because God loves to go on these dream journeys with you because he's put them in your heart for a reason, and it's usually to bless you and to bless others.
Yeah.
So don't give up on your dreams and to dream. And so you keep dreaming, Lindsay, okay? And I'm going to keep dreaming, and we're going to see what happens.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on. I'm always so happy and thrilled to talk about this. I mean, I've told people, I'm like, I would talk to anybody. If anyone will sit down and listen to me, I will talk to them about mold because it's that important to me. I tell people, I'm like, we're very passionate about it. And then I'm like, maybe obsessed.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you are passionate about it because it's your passion is what's helping people.
Yeah.
Thank you so
much. It's a blessing. Thank you.
Absolutely, it is. All right. Well, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas.
You too. Take care.
Right. Bye.
All right. Bye.
I don't take nothing that a doctor don't prescribe. I just take Paxil, Xanax, Zoloft, Flomax, morphine, Valtrex, Flonase, Plavix, codeine, Zyrtec, Zoma, Zantac, Ultram, Zocor, Zipro, Prozac, dopamine, Demerol, Lexapro.